Hello and a warm welcome to Federal special program Capital Beat. Centre has implemented its most sweeping labor overhaul in decades, notifying four labor codes that replace 29 existing workplace laws. Now, one is the Code of Wages 2019, the Industrial Relations Code 2020, the Code on Social Security 2020, and the Occupational Safety Health and Working Conditions Code 2020. They were all cleared by Parliament 5 years ago, but now have been formally brought into effect. Now, today, the winter session of the Parliament is on. Today was the third day, and the opposition parties protested over these labor codes. Now, what has the government been saying? The government has described the rollout of these labor codes as an effort to simplify the fragmented regulations dating back to the colonial era. And the government says that it is trying to modernize the workplace conditions, create a unified framework for the wages, social security, industrial relations, and safety. Now, if you look at the changes which have happened, they expand the fixed term employment, allow longer factory shifts, permit the right work for women, raise the layoff approval threshold from 100 to 300, and promise universal social security with statutory minimum wages, timely payments, mandatory appointment letters, and annual health checkups for workers aged 40 and above. Now, so why are the unions opposing this? Why are the political parties saying that it is not worker friendly code? Now, 10 major trade unions, they have aligned with the parties opposing Prime Minister Narendra Modi. They have condemned the rollout as a deceptive fraud. I'm underlining this word. They are condemning these labor codes as a deceptive fraud and have demanded the immediate withdrawal of the laws. Their joint statement, which was released recently, it argued that while the government has framed the codes as a simplification exercise, they also enable easier hiring and firing and weaken several long-standing safeguards. So the question we are asking this evening is that are these labor codes, are they a boon or a bane? Joining me this evening is renowned economist Professor Santosh Mehrotra. So thank you so much for joining. We have Sudeep Datta, who's from the Center for Trade Union, who's been part of the protests as well. Thank you so much, Sudeep. And I'll begin with Sudeep, and then I'll come for the larger picture to Professor Santosh Mehrotra. Deep, what would you really like to say about these labor codes? Today, there was a protest in Parliament. Opposition parties raised a banner of revolt saying that it's not worker friendly. But the trade unions also have been saying the same thing. Now, what is so contentious about these labor codes? Why do you feel that they are not worker friendly?
Thank you, Nilu. While talking about the labor code, I will just flag some of the issues. Many of the issues you have already mentioned. See, what we are saying that these labor codes are a part of a paradigm shift in the restructuring of labor relations. They are not mere technical reforms or not mere numbers. We must try to understand the situation of Indian labor. You see, the National Crime Records Bureau (NCRB) data last year it revealed that the suicide among the daily wage earners in 2023 it was around 47,170 daily wage workers. It means 129 persons per day. Why they are dying? They are dying because they don't see any way to survive. They don't know where to turn or whom to ask for help. So in this situation, despite the strong objections of the Indian central trade unions, the central government has notified the labor courts. The courts systematically raise the legal thresholds. This pushes the majority of the workers outside the protection of any labor legislation. Under the new Occupational Safety and Health Code, you see the definition of a factory has been changed. Units will now need 20 workers to with power instead of 10, or 40 workers without power instead of 20 to be covered under any legislation. So thousands of small units will no longer be legally bound by safety rules. For the contract workers, the threshold has been raised from 20 workers to 50. So contractors employing up to 49 workers now enjoy legal immunity. The Industrial Relations Code, it raises the threshold for permission for layoffs, retrenchment, and closures from 100 to 300 workers. Employers can now dismiss workers or close units without at their wishes. Standing orders, which define service conditions and protection against any arbitrary action, are now mandatory only for the units with more than 300 workers. So these changes removes almost 90% of the workers in the organized sector from basic legal protections. Safety provisions are
But Sudeep,
also, yeah,
Sudeep, rather than
yes,
demanding a complete withdrawal, the government could also go
yes,
in for some amendments. You're the contentious points. If you people sit down with the government, and if the government is ready to talk to the trade unions, if the government is ready to take their suggestions, then this can be worked around in a cordial manner. And those
yes,
kind of
yes.
amendments can be brought about. Is
Yes,
that
yes,
happening?
it can be, and that's why you see that these codes were passed unilaterally in the parliament, and for last 5 years we are demanding for, and we have given in written all of these issues. All of these issues were given in written by the central government to the central government by the central trade unions. We were demanding, and ILC, the Indian Labour Conference is the highest forum for the discussion of the labor with the tripartite forum. So it has not taken place for last 10 years. We were demanding before coming up with such a huge, massive change in the labor codes, labor acts. The government must sit with the trade unions and clear the contentions of the trade unions.
No,
Without,
but what I want to ask you, Sudeep, is
yeah,
that did the government hold the consultative process before arriving finally at these four labor codes? How much of the consultation happened before the
what do
government finalized all
oh,
this?
if I call a meeting with you for 2 hours and discuss with the 15 trade unions, and each trade unions are allowed to speak for 5 minutes, and without taking into any consideration into the courts, you say that the process of dialogue has been done away with. It doesn't make any sense for in real term. So the
No, so you
trade
are
unions,
saying, just allow me to interrupt. So you are
uh,
saying that not even a single suggestion made by the trade unions has been included in these labor codes?
you can check the 2019 code passed and the 2020 code passed. The major issues raised by the labor trade unions,
Hmm.
no issue is resolved. And very interestingly, if you see the BMS, which is a part of the ruling government also, they were not happy with the codes. They did not came up in support of the code for the last 6 years and 5 years. Suddenly, just now on the day of notifying the code, they came to government and said that we are supporting. So it shows that Indian labor organizations are apprehending, are fearing that these codes are going to snatch away all the existing rights of the workers. 90% of the Indian workforce will be outside the realm of any protection.
Nilu, can I just
Yes,
ask
yes, yes.
Sudeep?
I was
Can
calling
I?
you only for
I
Mehrotra.
no,
Yes.
I was going to ask Sudeep actually to just explain to us because you said the BMS was also showing concerns, and I'm aware about the concerns that they were showing concerns. What I'm not very clear about is what is the nature of the concerns that they were showing, on which they seem to have now backed off. So that will be useful, Sudeep, just to if
Yeah.
you could
Yeah,
explain to
Sudeep.
the
Yeah.
listeners.
That's an important
Yeah,
Yeah.
go
question.
ahead.
So
Hmm.
you see, mostly the issues they raised about the exclusion of the workforce from any legal protection, the ceilings that you are talking about,
The
or the
thresholds that you just mentioned, you
thresholds,
mentioned
yes,
these thresholds.
yes, or the fixed term employment, the hire and fire policy, or about the formation of the trade union, the 10% or 100 workers to be needed, or about the strike, that 14 days notice for all establishments. And if there is any conciliation process started, then you cannot go for strike, then it will be criminalized. So all these issues were raised by all trade unions, irrespective of their nature, their color. Indian workers were very much afraid of these legislations that were suddenly brought into.
Hmm. Interesting. Yeah, yeah.
So you feel,
What,
so you
tell me,
feel,
you haven't yourself. So forgive me. Nilu, I mean, I don't want to take away your role. I think this is
no, no,
it's
no.
a very
It's
important
fine, sir.
discussion because it's absolutely critical that some via media is found. You see, Sudeep also knows, and C2 and all the trade unions know that there is a government in power, and but workers have many very reasonable demands, and even some employers on the FTA, for instance, on the FTA. Let's just briefly, if you don't mind, discuss the fixed term appointment because See, one thing that one can say for the fixed term appointment in its favor is that it's an improvement on the contract labor situation. And at the same time, it is giving a certain degree of flexibility to the employer, which is what the employers were looking for. And at the same time, it's giving, the security to the workers that for the period that they are in fixed term employment, they are going to get the same terms and conditions as regular workers. Hmm. So, what I want to understand from, I think all of us need to be a bit clearer, and Sudeep might actually throw light on this, is what are the trade unions' position in respect of the fixed term agreement, fixed term contracts? Yeah,
Right.
Fixed term employment.
Obviously, go ahead.
Okay. So you see that the Contract Labor Regulation Abolition Act 1970, it clearly said that in the perennial and permanent nature of job, there should not be
correct,
any non-temporary form of employment. So the
correct.
fixed term employment legalizes all form of temporariness in all sort of work, all sort of permanent and perennial nature of work. That means there will be no form of permanent category of workforce in India in coming 10 years, because all the employers will be ready to provide job for 4 months or 6 months or 8 months. And whatever the benefit the permanent workers today get, as you rightly say, that the permanent workers benefit will be provided to the fixed term employees. Whatever benefit they gain out of the capacity to remain in the work, the out of the capacity to remain in the union. So the unionization will be demolished, the permanent nature of job will be demolished. Who will ensure what wage a fixed term employee? There will be a single relation with the employer, a big employer and a single employee. Who will ensure that what protection he will get? Either he will be doing the job in minimum wage, or he will be thrown out of the workforce. So there will be
But
no
I,
protection for
I
them.
understand that, Sudeep. I understand that, Sudeep. But let me just seek a clarification. I thought that the fixed term appointment will be available and valid only if there are core core activities versus non-core activities. In
Right,
non-core, the temporary work will survive, but
right,
in the core activities, they want to give the flexibility to the employer
right.
that they will only have either permanent or they will have fixed term. Am I right in that understanding?
Yes. So
Acha, but there's no, just one
yes,
additional question, just
yes, yes.
clarification. some लोग समझना बहुत जरूरी है कि क्या, my understanding is that the fixed term is not a is that the fixed term तो है, मगर वो ये नहीं कह रहे हैं कि कितने समय के लिए fixed term है.
Right.
Yeah, which I think is a problem, because fixed term should mean not the monthly or 3, 4, 5, 6 month thing. Fixed term should at the very least mean 1 year, and ideally in core functions it could continue. But so I want your the sort of CTU
And
and
then I'll
general
come
trade
to
union point of view.
my next question with Professor Mehrotra. Yes, Sudeep, just answer that. Yeah.
Just one point. You see that whatever the term may be, at the age of 45, an employee will be at the mercy of the employer for the next 1 year of his service or her service. So the entire form of permanent nature of employment is going to do away with this form of legalization. In the public sectors, you can see NTPC, a very strong public sector company. Now the permanent employee, a worker is 4,500 worker, and contract worker is 1,25,000. So this is the nature. 26 times, 25
It will
times.
increase. So it will increase the strength of the contractual workers, not the permanent
It,
workers.
it will do away with the permanent nature of
Permanent nature.
employment.
Yeah,
And they
right,
are mentioning in the core work. Earlier it was that
right,
the periphery work the contract workers were working. Now already the contract workers are working in
right.
the core work.
Got it. Got
But
it.
the,
Now
but the
let me
contract,
come to
yes.
Professor Mehrotra now. Professor Mehrotra, what does the complete picture to you look like as far as the labor codes are concerned? Are they flexible? Are they accommodative? Or they should be completely trashed and withdrawn, like what the opposition is demanding. Today, Sonia Gandhi, Rahul, and Mr. Kharge, and all the opposition parties had come along. In fact, the entire India bloc was protesting over this, and they were demanding a complete withdrawal. Do you think a complete withdrawal would be the best demand, or go in for amendments, go in for some more deliberations, and then formalize the process?
Um, that's that's a hard question to answer. Honestly, it's a hard question to answer because what we want is a win-win situation for more job growth, because that's a real problem. That job growth is not taking place, and one of the reasons why the why Sudeep rightly pointed towards the suicide rates is that job, you know, regular jobs are not growing, and real wages are not growing on account of that, and that's the reason even the Dihadi Mazdoors real wages have not grown, and the earnings of self-employed have been stagnant, and the same applies to regular workers, which is the reason why you have suicide. But the point here is that regular work is not growing, and because of this overall situation, there is growing frustration among the potential working class as well as those who already are in work. So in this scenario, and I'm giving you an overall picture here, which is the reason why I'm trying to explain why the trade unions are up in arms, and in many ways they are justified, because this is the overall context. Overall, formal jobs not growing, real wages not growing, and at the same time, you get a raising of thresholds in respect of organized sector laws, organized sector labor laws. And so this is the foundational reason for their angst, and a very justified angst, because this threshold business, and your listeners must understand this. The thresholds, when the government, you know, employs thresholds. Okay, if you have a certain number of workers, then certain laws apply. If you have less than that number of workers, the laws don't apply. The foundational problem with labor law in our country for the last 80 years, Neelu, is the following: that it is these thresholds which have created to this highly segmented labor market. You have an organized sector of which accounts for 15% of the total workforce of 610 million, and you have 85% of the workforce which is in the unorganized sector, where less than 10 workers are employed. Now we are saying the unorganized will consist of those where in units where there are less than 20 workers. So in other words, you are increasing the share of the unorganized, and the movement should be the opposite. Try and understand what I'm trying to say. The movement has to be the opposite. The second thing that needs to happen in our labor law is that all labor law needs to apply to the unorganized sector as well. You get the point? Currently, you have a situation where these labor laws, people think, oh, this is such a revolutionary step. I'll come to that revolutionary dimension in a minute. I haven't finished. But the point is that these labor laws hardly apply to the 85% of the workforce of this country. That is the big tragedy of this country. And this tragedy cannot continue. So while much of the discussion currently is focused on the the law, the changes that they make to the existing law. So what I'm trying to say is this is not revolutionary at all in in some ways, because it doesn't you had a problem earlier of unorganized sector workers not covered, and still they are not covered,
So,
and
Manoj,
you made
no, the way the government is trying to take the credit that we've done away with the colonial
वो
laws, we've
क्रेडिट
got.
क्यों ले रहे हैं उसका मैं एक्सप्लेनेशन कर देता हूं, मैं उसका एक्सप्लेनेशन बताता हूं. देखो, देयर इज नो क्वेश्चन अबाउट इट that there is no purpose served, neither worker concerns nor employer concerns are met if you have 29 central government labor laws on the statute books. It causes endless confusion. It doesn't work in the interest of anyone except the labor lawyers, and it raises the number of cases in court. That's the last thing we need at this stage. in the lives of workers. Hmm? Trade unions don't want to be spending half their lives in, fighting for the for their trade union members in courts. And all this happens because the government keeps bringing cases to court, and inevitably the courts get clogged and cases don't get resolved. This is a mess. What is the lesson I'm taking away? The lesson is that there is no question that we needed a simplification, a rationalization, because it is not just that we have 29 central government laws, labor laws. We now have four, but we have about 100 odd state government laws as well. Please remember that this is a concurrent subject in our constitution. So you don't just have central laws, you have the state government laws. Now, this is a nightmare scenario, both for workers as well as for employees. It's not a tenable situation. We cannot become a organized, formalized, modern economy,
Yeah.
which is what we want to become if we continue on this path. So, to that extent, the fact that the number of laws have come down and hence the number of rules have come down from about 1400, I understand, to about 350. Now, that's a very important improvement. The number of forms that have to be filled out by employers, those have been halved. That's a very important thing. Now, and I'll finish with this, and because I really we want you to ask, want to enable Sudeep to speak. The foundational problem with our labor law regime, Neelu, which the government is not addressing, and I'm sorry to say, even the trade unions are not raising it in a big enough way, and they must raise it in a big enough way,
Right.
is the following. In a country of 610 million workers, that's the size of our workforce, okay, in 2024, periodic labor force survey data. Okay, 85% of them are in the informal sector, but 15% of them are still in the, which still means you have something like 80, 90 million in the organized sector. Okay. Now the point is that for them, you know how many labor inspectors there are in this country, and Sudeep can actually fill us in better if my numbers are wrong. My understanding is that in the whole country there are 6,000 posts for labor inspection. In a workforce of that size, you can imagine 6,000 is not enough. Tragedy, of the 6,000 posts, only 3,000 labor inspectors are in position. That means 50% of labor inspector posts are vacant. Now, how do you run a labor law regime, even if you simplify it? You bring it law down from 29 central laws to 4 central laws, but you still have 100 state government laws. I am saying these 3,000 labor inspectors are supposed to implement, regulate, report on millions of enterprises in the organized sector alone. Neelu, there are 10 million enterprises. छोटी बड़ी मध्यम आप समझ सकती है ना.
Yeah. No, no, I got
I
your
mean,
point.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's what am I to say? I'd
Yeah.
like to hear Sudeep's
Yeah, yeah.
views on many of
And now
these dimensions.
I'll come to the concluding comments only. And Shadeep, I want to understand from you now that we've discussed the pros and the cons. Also, the brighter side, Professor Mehrotra has explained that, okay, the number of forms will be halved. So, that kind of complexity which was there will not be existing. But the work environment, as far as, things from the workers' point of view, they don't look very good. So, what is the way out now? What are you all planning? Because today there was a protest. Of course, the winter session will get over. It's a very short session. What after that? How are you trying to take up this issue with the government now?
See, the major crux of the thing is that with the modernization of the productive force, the number of workers needed is coming down for for a specific form of production.
Yeah.
So, in all way, the ceiling should be brought down, not to be like taken above to exclude. So it's completely an exclusionary mechanism against the workers. So we are not going to allow it. It is in cracks, I can say you. So the central trade unions, already the protests have started, and the central trade unions are meeting on 8th of this month. We will go for a heightening of the struggle. We may go for a national level agitation culminating into a strike. But anyway, we are not allowing these labor codes to be implemented. Let the government speak with us, not a 2-hour meeting with 15 central trade unions, but a serious discussion to accommodate our apprehensions, and then we can come up with the more amenable solution of this situation. But now, for now, we want the repealing of these labor codes.
Right. Okay. So you are saying that you want the labor code to be repealed. Are you hopeful that the government will do it? Because it's like a credit taking exercise for them. They are talking big about this. Do you think that they will repeal, or you
We
can
have,
force them to repeal? No, like
we,
the farmers laws, will you be able to force them to repeal the labor code?
if 61 million workers they think, then the government or any government will be compelled to.
All right.
It
All
is
right.
the task of all of us.
Right. All right. All right. So you will carry on with a sustained campaign. That's what I'm presuming after listening to you. All right. Okay. So we'll have to end it here. Thank you so much, Professor Mehrotra and Sudeep Datta. It was wonderful having both of you on the program. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.